May 3, 2007. A quiet seaside resort in Portugal. A 3-year-old girl vanishes from her bed while her parents dine, just yards away. Locks no witnesses. No sounds. Just an open window and an empty bed. Within hours, a search begins. Within days, the world is watching. Then, rumors, lies, shifting suspects. A known pedophile, buried USB drives, a body of a dog hiding digital secrets. 18 years later, we still ask, who took Madeleine McCann? And is the truth far simpler than we've been led to believe? On Saturday, April 28, 2007, the McCann family arrived in Praia da Luz, a small coastal town nestled in Portugal's Algarve region. They weren't alone. Joining them on holiday were 7 of their closest friends, 3 other couples and 1 single friend, making a group of 9 adults and 8 young children. The destination was Ocean Club, a self-catering resort known for its tennis courts, beachside views, and family-friendly atmosphere. Each family booked a separate unit. The McCanns were assigned apartment 5A, a ground-floor flat with 2 bedrooms, a patio, and easy access to the pool and tennis courts. Over the next few days, the group settled into a rhythm, calm, repetitive, and deeply familiar. The mornings and afternoons were structured around the kids' club. Every day from 9 a.m. to noon, and again from 2:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. The children attended group activities while the adults played tennis, read books, or relaxed in the sun. Jerry McCann was a regular on the courts, while Kate spent time near the pool or walking the resort grounds. Evenings followed a routine of their own. At 5:30 p.m., the children had dinner with the kids' club staff. By 6 p.m. or shortly after, Kate brought Madeleine, Sean, and Emily back to apartment 5A for baths and bedtime. The children were typically asleep by 7:30 p.m. At 8:30 p.m. sharp, the adults reconvened at the Ocean Club Tapas restaurant. They sat at the same table each night. To accommodate their sleeping children, the group devised a simple but consistent system. Every 15 to 30 minutes, one parent would leave the table to check on the children in their apartments. Inside 5A, Madeleine slept in a single bed near the window, while her twin siblings slept in cots nearby. The sliding patio door remained unlocked, easy to open quietly and quickly during the routine checks. There was no alarm system, no cameras, just habit, convenience, and trust. One final photo from that week captures Madeleine smiling in a pink outfit beside her father and brother at the pool. It was taken on the afternoon of May 3. Nothing in it seemed unusual. At the time, no one could have imagined that this peaceful, sun-drenched routine was about to be shattered. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry returned to apartment 5A for his check. He entered through the back patio door, which remained unlocked. Inside, the children were asleep. The bedroom door, slightly ajar, was nudged back into position. On his way back, Jerry stopped for a brief conversation with another guest, Jeremy Wilkins, outside near the walkway. Between 9:15 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., Jane Tanner left the table to check on her own child. As she passed by apartment 5A, she noticed a man walking across the street, carrying a small child dressed in light-colored pajamas. The man was moving away from the McCann apartment. For years, this figure would be central to the investigation, before eventually being identified and ruled out as an innocent tourist. At 9:30 p.m., Matt Oldfield went to check on the McCann children in Kate's place. He noticed the bedroom door was now more widely open. He didn't step inside, didn't turn on the light, and didn't look directly at the beds. He paused, heard no sound, and returned to the restaurant. It is possible that by then, Madeleine was already gone. At exactly 10 p.m., Kate McCann went to check herself. She entered through the patio and immediately sensed something wrong. The window was open. The shutter raised. The bedroom curtains billowed in the night air. Madeleine's bed was empty. Her siblings slept on, untouched. Kate ran back to the tapas bar, shouting, "They've taken her. Madeleine's gone." Between 10 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. on May 3, 2007, panic spread quickly through the Ocean Club Resort. More than 60 people, Jerry McCann, His friends, hotel staff, and fellow vacationers rallied together in a frantic, improvised search. Flashlights scanned every footpath. Doors were knocked on. Madeleine's name echoed across courtyards and down corridors. They searched the bushes, the playground, even the swimming pool, anything that might lead to a clue. At 11 p.m., officers from the Portuguese GNR arrived at the scene. But by then, crucial ground had already been lost. Apartment 5A, the last place Madeleine was seen, had not been sealed off. Dozens of individuals had entered and exited the space, leaving behind footprints, fingerprints, and scent contamination. Curtains had been drawn back. The window had been touched. The bed had been handled, all of it undermining the possibility of collecting reliable forensic evidence. The police response was slow, fragmented, and riddled with omissions. There were no roadblocks, no border alerts, no airport notifications or flight restrictions. Authorities did not initiate house-to-house searches of nearby buildings. Aside from taking basic statements from Jerry and Kate McCann that night, there was little sense of urgency or structured coordination. These early missteps quickly began to pile up. The crime scene remained compromised. A phone record showing unusual activity near the time of disappearance was not immediately analyzed. Within days, tensions grew between Portugal's Polícia Judiciária and British police units. Criticism mounted over PJ's inexperience with child abduction cases and the lack of cooperation between Portuguese and UK investigators, including Leicestershire Police and later, Scotland Yard. Delays in strategy, evidence collection, and communication would haunt the investigation for years. Then, in July 2007, almost 10 weeks after Madeleine disappeared, Portuguese authorities brought in 2 specialized sniffer dogs from the UK. One was trained to detect the scent of blood, the other, cadaver odor. Both dogs alerted at 11 different locations, including a corner of the McCann's apartment and the rear compartment of a Renault Scenic rental car. The couple had used weeks after the incident. Samples collected from the car were sent to the Forensic Science Service in the UK. But the results were inconclusive. The samples contained a complex mixture of DNA, possibly including Madeleine's, but not definitively hers. No clear blood trace. No identifiable body fluid. The moment marked a turning point in the case, where forensic uncertainty collided with public suspicion, and the investigation began shifting into far more controversial territory. From the very moment Madeleine McCann was reported missing on May 3, 2007, a global media storm erupted with unprecedented intensity. Within 24 hours, international outlets, BBC, Sky News, CNN, had placed her story on front pages and breaking news segments. Her wide-eyed image, innocent and instantly recognizable, appeared in airports, train stations, and even illuminated jumbotrons at football stadiums across continents. The world was captivated. Just 48 hours later, Jerry and Kate McCann stepped in front of cameras. It was an unusual move for grieving parents, but not an impulsive one. The McCanns had already begun assembling a professional media strategy, one that would eventually mirror political campaigns in scope and sophistication. They created the website Find Madeleine.com, launched the Find Madeleine Fund, and appeared on major shows including Oprah and BBC One. Their appeal was amplified by celebrity endorsements from the likes of David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, and J.K. Rowling. On May 31, 2007, they met Pope Benedict XVI in Rome, an unprecedented audience granted in the midst of a criminal investigation. Much of this was orchestrated by Clarence Mitchell, a former UK government press officer, who was appointed the McCanns' official spokesperson just weeks after the disappearance. Having previously worked in the Prime Minister's media monitoring unit, Mitchell brought a level of strategic control rarely seen in missing persons cases. Under his guidance, the media messaging around Madeleine became as focused and calculated as a national election campaign. The Find Madeleine Fund also extended far beyond posters and press releases. It financed private detectives, notably hiring the Spanish firm Método 3, which boldly claimed they would locate Madeleine within months. The fund also supported outdoor billboard campaigns across countries known for trafficking routes, such as Morocco and Belgium, and invested in paid online ads on Google and YouTube by 2008. Support for the McCanns came not only from celebrities and the public, but also from the highest levels of British government. Then, Prime Minister Gordon Brown personally contacted the family to express solidarity. The British ambassador to Portugal was tasked with supporting the McCanns directly, which led to accusations from Portuguese media and investigators of undue political pressure, a charge that would further strain bilateral relations. Yet this overwhelming spotlight carried consequences. As media coverage expanded, so too did the scrutiny. Critics began to ask why this child? Why this case? The term, missing white girl syndrome, re-emerged, with outlets like The Guardian and The Independent pointing out how the disappearances of children of color received far less attention. Madeleine's face had become symbolic, but the symbolic came at a cost to substance. A stark divide also emerged between the British and Portuguese press. In the UK, Madeleine was portrayed as angelic, and the McCanns as heartbroken parents wronged by fate. Meanwhile, Portuguese tabloids, particularly Correio da Manhã, began leaking investigative details, casting suspicion on the McCanns themselves. When, in September 2007, they were named Argados, formal suspects, the tone shifted. UK tabloids began to question their narrative. American talk shows aired debates suggesting a cover-up. Online forums erupted with theories: accidental death, child trafficking, even organ smuggling. Death threats and hate mail flooded the McCanns' inboxes. They responded by hiring public relations experts and legal teams to manage the backlash. In 2008, after over 100 defamatory articles in British tabloids like The Sun, The Daily Express, and The Daily Star, the newspapers were forced to issue front-page apologies and pay £55,000 in damages. The McCanns also sued former Portuguese detective Gonçalo Amaral, who alleged in his book The Truth of the Lie that Madeleine had died in the apartment, and her parents staged an abduction. Although a lower court ruled in their favor, Portugal's Supreme Court reversed that decision in 2017, upholding Amaral's right to publish. The story didn't end in headlines. In 2008 to 2009, the European Parliament introduced Amber Alert Europe, a rapid child abduction alert system inspired in part by the McCann case. Lawmakers cited the absence of a real-time regional alert in 2007 as a critical failure. The case had already laid bare a fragmented system where time-sensitive coordination between countries was virtually non-existent. Meanwhile, the media narrative continued to evolve. In 2019, Netflix released The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, an 8-part documentary. The McCanns publicly distanced themselves from the project, criticizing it for sensationalizing and potentially misrepresenting the truth. Other documentaries from BBC, ITV, and Channel 4 offered competing portrayals, some sympathetic, others critical of media overreach and unverified reporting. This led to deeper ethical discussions. Scholars and journalists began questioning whether Madeleine's image had been commodified, used as a symbol rather than preserved as a person. Articles in The Guardian and New Statesman argued that relentless broadcasting, monetized media deals, and international coverage may have obscured investigative objectivity. Had the public's obsession with the case unintentionally blurred the line between awareness and exploitation? By 2008, the transformation was undeniable. This was no longer just a missing child case. It had become a political event, a media phenomenon, and a mirror reflecting society's biases. Was the truth drowned in noise? Were the McCanns victims of a broken system, or part of its manipulation? The questions multiplied. The answers did not. And through it all, Madeleine McCann remained missing. Her room stayed untouched. Her parents never stopped searching. In the end, the legacy of this case is not just about the investigation or the media. It's about the world's response to the disappearance of a single child and how that response changed everything. The initial hours of any missing child case often focus on the immediate surroundings and those closest to the victim. In the case of Madeleine McCann, suspicion turned quickly toward her own parents. Jerry and Kate McCann were not only the ones who reported her missing, but also the last known adults to have seen her. They had left 3 small children asleep in an unlocked apartment while they dined 50 meters away with friends. It wasn't just one night. This was part of a routine, one that the entire group of 7 friends, known as the Tapas 7, had adopted. Rotating checks every 15 to 30 minutes. Same restaurant, same pattern, every night. Public scrutiny began to mount. Was this mere negligence or a systemic failure of judgment? More than that, a chilling question emerged. If something had gone wrong before 10 p.m., would anyone even know? Kate McCann later told investigators that when she entered the apartment at 10 p.m., the bedroom window was wide open, the curtain billowing, and Madeleine's bed was empty. She said she screamed. But not a single guest, neighbor, or passerby recalled hearing anything. No cries, no car speeding off, no alarm. If a child was taken, how had it happened so quietly? And could the timeline everyone believed be completely wrong? There is now reason to believe that Kate may have discovered Madeleine missing slightly earlier than 10 p.m. Multiple witnesses recalled the resort falling into chaos just before 9:58 p.m. That discrepancy, just a matter of minutes, has carried enormous weight. If true, it could alter the suspected time window of the abduction, challenging nearly every timeline constructed since. Then came the mysterious man in brown. At 9:15 p.m., 45 minutes before Kate's discovery, Jane Tanner, a friend dining with the McCanns, said she saw a man walking briskly down the street, carrying a young girl in pale pajamas, barefoot. The man was tall and slim, wearing a light jacket and dark trousers. The child was motionless. Was this Madeleine? Tanner's sighting became the heart of the abduction theory, yet inexplicably. No official sketch based on her description was released to the public for months. For a case of such magnitude, this delay was puzzling. Critics saw it as a sign of investigative lethargy, or worse, bureaucratic obstruction. In a fast-moving case, time was everything. And time was lost. Weeks later, a British tourist came forward, saying he had been walking his own daughter home that night, matching Tanner's description and timeline. He had no idea his harmless walk had ignited an international manhunt. Police closed that line of inquiry. Yet, for many, the image of the man carrying the girl lingered. If not him, then who? Another detail slipped through the cracks. A woman staying in the apartment above the McCanns reported hearing faint crying around 10:30 p.m. after the disappearance was supposedly discovered. She couldn't tell which child was crying, but her testimony was never seriously explored. Could this mean someone had returned to the apartment after 10 p.m.? In July 2007, 10 weeks after the disappearance, Portuguese police brought in 2 specially trained British sniffer dogs, one to detect blood, the other to alert to the scent of a human corpse. What happened next turned the case upside down. The dogs reacted in key places in the corner of the McCann's apartment bedroom. On one of Madeleine's cuddle toys. On Kate's clothing. And inside the trunk of a rental car the couple had hired weeks after the disappearance. But less well known is that the dogs also reacted to other ambiguous items, like the apartment keys and random belongings inside the car. These alerts were never conclusively tied to Madeleine. Samples were collected and sent to the UK's Forensic Science Service. The result? A mixed DNA profile that could include Madeleine but could not definitively prove it. No blood. No unique identifiers. The analysis itself became controversial. Critics accused the lab of statistical overreach, while others questioned the legal admissibility of canine alerts without supporting forensic confirmation. The debate was never settled. Behind the scenes, tensions between British and Portuguese authorities escalated. Leicestershire Police and the Metropolitan Police Service accused their Portuguese counterparts of leaking information to the press and botching evidence. The Portuguese Polícia Judiciária, PJ believed British officials were shielding the McCanns, allowing politics and press to interfere with the investigation. Then came a new twist, The Truth of the Lie. Written by former lead detective Gonçalo Amaral in 2008, the book accused the McCanns of staging an abduction to cover up an accidental death. Amaral's theory: Madeleine died in the apartment, either by fall or medication, and the couple panicked, hid the body, and invented the kidnapping. The book became a bestseller in Portugal and ignited a firestorm of lawsuits. The McCanns sued for defamation. They won initially in 2015, but the ruling was overturned by Portugal's Supreme Court in 2017. Amaral had a right to his theory, even if unproven. The term Arade was applied to both Jerry and Kate McCann in September 2007 under Portuguese law. This designation confers rights similar to being a suspect, such as the right to remain silent. But crucially, no formal charges were ever filed. In July 2008, they were officially cleared. Yet the damage was done. In the eyes of many, suspicion had already taken root. Adding to that tension were the Tapas 7 themselves. According to investigative reports, at least 3 members of the group refused to answer key questions during follow-up interviews in the UK. While legally within their rights, their silence fed rumors of a coordinated cover-up or withheld knowledge. None of these theories were ever substantiated. Other physical inconsistencies remained unresolved. For instance, the apartment window that Kate claimed had been forced open showed no signs of tampering, according to forensic teams. The window frame bore no scratches, and the blinds were undamaged. Some experts believe panic or trauma may have shaped her recollection, but others see it as a red flag. There were also conflicting statements about whether the front door was locked. Jerry said it was closed but not locked. Kate later implied it had been locked. That small contradiction may seem minor, but in a case where minutes and entry points matter, it added another layer of doubt. In the absence of concrete evidence, theories multiplied. Some believed Madeleine may have woken up, wandered off, and fallen into a construction pit nearby. Others speculated that the children had been sedated, perhaps unintentionally overdosed, and Madeleine never woke up. There were even whispers that someone within the Tapas 7 group knew more than they admitted, though all statements aligned and no forensic contradictions emerged. Still, no confessions. No physical violence. No traceable abductor. No confirmed sighting. Every path seemed to lead to more shadows. The questions remained. Had a tragic accident been hidden beneath layers of denial? Or were all the theories just that, unfounded speculation with no real anchor in truth? In the end, the most unnerving possibility wasn't that a stranger had entered apartment 5A. It was that someone who already knew Madeleine had left with her. The first suspects weren't lurking in the dark or watching from a distance. They were right there at the table, finishing their wine, while a child disappeared just meters away. If not them, then who? And if it wasn't that night, when did it really happen? Since 2007, authorities have logged more than 8,000 reported sightings of Madeleine McCann across over 40 countries, spanning Europe, Asia, Africa, North and South America. From bustling city centers to remote mountain villages, tip lines rang nonstop with claims that a girl resembling Madeleine had been spotted. Yet, despite the global outpouring of reports, not a single one has ever been confirmed. One of the earliest and most widely publicized sightings came from Morocco in May 2007, just weeks after Madeleine's disappearance. A Swedish tourist claimed to have seen a young blonde girl walking with an older woman in a rural village near Marrakech. The story ignited global hope that Madeleine had been abducted and smuggled out of Europe. But upon investigation, authorities identified the girl as a local child, and the lead was quickly closed. Another tip surfaced in Belgium in July 2007. Witnesses reported hearing a man speaking English to a young girl in a cafe in Tongeren. Again, speculation mounted, but the situation turned out to be innocent and unrelated. That same pattern repeated itself time and again. In Paraguay in 2008, a girl was photographed and compared to Madeleine, prompting DNA testing. In India in 2011, a British couple believed they had seen her with 2 locals. In both cases, results were conclusive: no match. Scattered reports continued to arrive from Canada, New Zealand, Dubai, and beyond. These were often fueled by blurry CCTV footage, online speculation, or vague physical similarities. But every time, the trail went cold. Beyond traditional tips, the case also attracted a deluge of supernatural claims. Psychics from around the globe sent in visions, spiritual coordinates, and intuitive insights. Some said Madeleine was alive and hidden, others claimed she had died near the resort. British and Portuguese authorities reviewed the information, but found nothing actionable. No psychic claim ever led to credible evidence, and law enforcement eventually dismissed these contributions as distracting and unreliable. A major focal point in the campaign to find Madeleine was her unique eye. She was born with a rare coloboma in her right eye, a dark stripe running vertically from the pupil. In 2009, the McCanns launched the Look Into My Eyes campaign, leveraging the rare defect in posters, billboards, and digital ads. The goal was clear: anyone who encountered her would recognize the eye immediately. Ironically, the campaign's widespread visibility led to hundreds of new reports, particularly across North Africa and Europe. But none of these sightings were confirmed. Despite the vivid posters and public appeals, the coloboma never yielded a single verifiable match in photos or surveillance footage. Media exposure played a dual role in the proliferation of sightings. After each high-profile documentary or news feature, tip lines lit up. For instance, following the release of Netflix's 2019 series, The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, dozens of new reports were submitted. This trend was consistent. Publicity spikes often led to surges in sightings. While some reports were made in good faith, others were fueled by hysteria, false memories, or individuals simply seeking attention. In fact, a portion of the 8,000 reports were identified as deliberate hoaxes or came from individuals suffering from psychological instability. Some false reports were attempts to manipulate media, others driven by a need for relevance or attention. Regardless of intent, these false leads consumed precious police resources, derailed lines of inquiry, and muddied the waters for genuine tips. The structure of international cooperation was also a limiting factor. Between 2007 and 2013, many countries lacked protocols for timely data sharing on child abductions. Interpol cooperation existed, but without a unified real-time platform, critical data lagged. Some reports from Asia and Africa took days, or even weeks, to be processed due to bureaucratic red tape or communication gaps. This delay in coordination is one reason cited in the eventual push for Amber Alert Europe, which was partially inspired by the inefficiencies seen during the Madeleine McCann case. Adding to the challenge was the lack of biometric recognition and AI tools during the initial years. Between 2007 and 2010, facial recognition software was rudimentary. The McCanns released several progression photos, depictions of what Madeleine might look like at 6, 8, or 10, but these were manually rendered graphics, not AI-generated composites. This limitation made it nearly impossible to cross-reference sightings with camera footage or crowd images in a meaningful way. Compounding the technological limitations was the lack of a centralized database. Police agencies in Portugal, the UK, and Germany each maintained their own set of reports, leading to duplication, misclassification, and incomplete data. Some reports were missing crucial timestamps or locations, others overlapped. Without a master index, filtering credible leads from misidentified ones became an overwhelming task. The media also played a problematic role in some instances. A notable example occurred when Brazilian national television aired CCTV footage of a girl thought to resemble Madeleine, prompting a flurry of international headlines. Within hours, the footage was debunked, but the damage was done. Once misinformation spread across media channels, it became difficult to retract or clarify, further eroding public trust in the investigation. Perhaps the most sobering reality is this: not one of the 8,000 sightings has been supported by forensic evidence. In the handful of cases where DNA testing was conducted, such as in Paraguay or Morocco, results were definitively negative. No sample of hair, skin, saliva, or personal belongings ever matched Madeleine. No fingerprints, no biological trace, No direct link has ever emerged. 17 years on, these thousands of leads and sightings remain archived, but silent. They serve as haunting evidence not of a trail, but of a void. They reflect humanity's desperate will to hope, to find, to believe. But they also reveal the fragility of witness memory, the limits of global policing, and the chaos that can follow even the most organized searches when no central truth anchors the effort. In the end, the sightings remain just that, flashes in the dark, none bright enough to illuminate the truth. It took over a decade for authorities to name an official suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. But when they did, the man at the center was far from unknown to law enforcement. Christian Bruckner, a German national born in 1976, carried with him a deeply disturbing criminal history. He had been convicted for sexually abusing minors, trafficking narcotics, and repeatedly breaking into homes and vacation rentals, particularly those frequented by foreign tourists. His criminal profile fit a predator who knew how to operate in the shadows. In May 2007, when Madeleine vanished from the Ocean Club Resort, Bruckner was living just 1 mile away. He split his time between a camper van and a rented house tucked into the outskirts of Praia da Luz. Locals later confirmed he knew the area well, its back roads, its rental layouts, and even the daily habits of visiting families. He had even worked at a nearby bar around 2006 to 2007, giving him routine exposure to tourist patterns and the layout of the resort. The camper van itself, white with a yellow stripe, was reportedly seen parked near the Ocean Club in the days surrounding Madeleine's disappearance. Authorities believe the vehicle may have been used to surveil the area, and possibly even as a means to abduct and transport a child. However, forensic examination years later revealed no physical evidence linking the van to Madeleine. Multiple reports suggest Bruckner exhibited disturbing behavior while living in the area. One witness claimed he had been seen photographing children at a beach near the Algarve without parental consent. Though this incident was included in German police files, no legal action was taken at the time due to insufficient proof. But it wasn't just geography, it was timing. At 9:01 p.m. on May 3, 2007, the very night Madeleine disappeared, a call was made from a burner phone that pinged off a cell tower mere meters from apartment 5A. The SAM card was prepaid and unregistered, complicating the investigation. Nonetheless, police were later able to confirm that Bruckner was using the device at that precise time. The call lasted over 30 minutes, perfectly overlapping with the window during which Madeleine is believed to have gone missing. The next day, May 4, 2007, Bruckner acted fast. He sold his Jaguar in a hurried transaction and fled Portugal, returning to Germany without explanation. The abrupt move, so soon after a high-profile disappearance, only deepened suspicions. Was it coincidence, or was he running? Further suspicion emerged when it was revealed that Bruckner had been living with an American girlfriend at the time. She, too, left Portugal shortly after the disappearance. Though questioned later, she denied any involvement or knowledge of the event. Investigators could never conclusively determine whether she played a role in hiding information. Incredibly, German authorities had received a tip about Bruckner as early as 2008. Law enforcement officials in Germany had flagged his name and sent a notice to Portuguese authorities, suggesting he could be worth investigating. But the warning was overlooked, buried by a lack of hard evidence and the confusion that plagued the case in its early years. Years later, those suspicions would resurface in terrifying form. In 2016, German police raided one of Bruckner's temporary residences. What they found was grotesque. Buried beneath the corpse of a dead dog in his backyard, officers unearthed a stash of hidden materials, 8,000 digital files, including images and videos, stored across USB drives, hard disks, and memory cards. Alongside them 75 children's swimsuits, many believed to be trophies. The digital content was described as explicit child abuse material, further solidifying his status as a dangerous repeat offender. That same investigation led to a separate conviction. Bruckner was sentenced to 7 years in prison in Germany for raping a 72-year-old woman, an attack that took place in Praia da Luz in 2005, just 2 years before Madeleine disappeared. But perhaps the most chilling detail came from his own words. In 2013, while investigating other sexual offenses, German authorities recovered disturbing text logs from Bruckner's devices. One message read, "I want to catch something small and use it for days." It wasn't just violent, it was methodical, calculated. Another text described his desire to create a place where nobody can find out what I'm doing. It painted a picture of a predator who not only stalked, but planned. Then came a lead that drew investigators to a remote area 50 kilometers from Praia da Luz Arade Dam. Bruckner had once referred to it as "my little paradise," a phrase discovered in either GPS metadata or his personal notes. Police matched this to GPS coordinates extracted from his devices, placing him in that isolated region at a time of interest. In May 2023, German authorities launched a large-scale excavation at the dam site, using sonar, drones, and forensic divers. They found nothing: no bones, no clothing, no DNA, no trace of Madeleine McCann. Bruckner's dark history doesn't end there. In 2015, a 5-year-old girl named Inga Jarek disappeared in Germany under mysterious circumstances. Her case bore eerie similarities to Madeleine's. The victim was young, blonde, and vanished while with her family. Bruckner was investigated in connection with the disappearance, as he had been staying nearby at the time. Yet, as with Madeleine, no direct evidence was ever found, and the case remains unsolved. Further adding to the suspicion, a former cellmate of Bruckner's told police that Bruckner had boasted in a bar that he knew what happened to Madeleine, and that she didn't scream. This statement became a critical point of interest and prompted renewed international investigation. However, because it was based solely on hearsay, with no recording or corroboration, it lacked legal weight. Bruckner has consistently denied involvement in the Madeleine McCann case. In a handwritten letter sent from prison, he labeled the accusations against him as absurd and claimed he was being scapegoated due to his criminal past. In the same letter, he accused German investigators of orchestrating a modern witch hunt and twisting the facts to feed public opinion and media frenzy. His defense attorney echoed this sentiment, arguing that there is no forensic or eyewitness evidence directly linking Bruckner to the disappearance. And so, despite all the shadows surrounding Christian Bruckner, his past, his proximity, his digital footprints, his words, the case remains open. Because in the end, there is still no body, no witness, no definitive proof. Only a mounting wall of implications, and the haunting possibility that the truth lies just outside the reach of the law. But if it wasn't him, then who was it? Or worse, what if it was, and we may never be able to prove it? Among the list of suspects ever considered in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, one name stands out with chilling weight: Martin Ney, a convicted German serial child killer whose dark legacy has haunted Europe for years. Born in 1970, Martin Ney was once known as a youth worker, employed in numerous education programs and summer camps for children across Germany and Europe. This role gave him unfiltered access to vulnerable children, particularly young boys between the ages of 6 and 13, his known victim profile. Ney used the trust of parents and institutions to his advantage, hiding behind the guise of a caretaker while secretly observing, selecting targets, and carrying out acts of abuse and murder with frightening precision. His modus operandi was disturbingly consistent. He often wore a balaclava to hide his identity and used anesthetic spray to subdue his victims. Then, under the cover of night, he would assault and strangle them, leaving behind no trace, no noise, no witnesses. His attacks were not spontaneous, they were methodically premeditated, often following days of surveillance and behavioral study of his targets. In 2011, Ney was convicted of murdering 3 boys between 1992 and 2001. Stephen G., 13 years old, vanished in 1992 from a youth hostel in Schleswig-Holstein. Dennis R., 8 years old, killed in 1995 in a forested area in Niedersachsen. Dennis K., 9 years old, abducted in 2001 from a dormitory in Hamburg. All 3 were taken from overnight camps or child-focused facilities, drugged, abused, and then strangled to death. Their similarities painted a chilling behavioral profile: a hunter who stalked at night, struck in safe spaces, and vanished without a trace. But the connections didn't stop there. According to a 2016 investigation by Süddeutsche Zeitung, Ney had reportedly worked with an international children's program in Portugal in 2007, the same year Madeleine McCann disappeared. The organization operated in the Algarve region, close to Praia da Luz. Though official records don't confirm the exact dates or camp names, this geographic and temporal proximity could not be ignored. Could Ney, a man known to infiltrate youth environments undetected, have been scouting the Ocean Club resort without raising alarms? Adding to the suspicion, Ney was also known to pose as a television journalist, complete with a fake camera, as a method to approach and record children in public spaces. In at least one reported case, he used this ploy to gain proximity to minors at a beach, strikingly similar to the relaxed, family-oriented environment at Praia da Luz. The possibility that Ney may have visited or surveilled the Ocean Club in disguise has not been ruled out. There's more. Though Ney's documented victims were all young boys, Interpol and various European law enforcement agencies have listed him as a person of interest in other unsolved disappearances, some involving girls. Especially in cases where no body was found or the cause of death remained unclear, authorities have acknowledged that Ney's profile may not be as fixed as initially assumed. In rare but documented instances, serial predators have deviated from established patterns, especially when the opportunity or target presents itself under unique circumstances. A vulnerable 3-year-old girl in a poorly secured resort. It's a deviation investigators can't completely rule out. Martin Ney also traveled widely across Europe, often under false identities. Europol records suggest he used at least 4 forged passports or identification documents between 2005 and 2009 to move between France, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. He participated in multiple volunteer and educational programs under aliases, slipping through bureaucratic cracks with ease. Authorities have never been able to confirm his exact whereabouts. On May 3, 2007, the night Madeleine vanished, his spring 2007 itinerary remains an open question. Further accounts from Germany and the Netherlands describe a mysterious man loitering near children's campgrounds at night, unregistered, but seen multiple times at the same sites. These reports, later connected to Ney, suggest he regularly surveyed child-populated areas, even when he wasn't officially employed there. Could he have done the same at Praia da Luz, casing the Ocean Club from the shadows? When Ney was arrested in 2011, investigators uncovered disturbing trophies in his home, small items like children's underwear, trinkets, and personal belongings believed to have been taken from victims. While none of these matched Madeleine or other known missing girls, the behavior mirrors that of other child abductors who collect items as grim tokens. In 2020, as the world's attention turned to Christian Bruckner, German prosecutors publicly stated that Ney was not a suspect in the McCann case. However, they clarified that this decision wasn't based on exculpatory evidence, but on the absence of digital or forensic proof. It was an exclusion by default, not by certainty. Unlike Bruckner, whose trail includes GPS logs, burner phones, and internet records, Ney left no digital footprint. He often traveled by train or bus, avoided phones, and operated without any consistent technological pattern. That elusiveness, once an advantage in evading detection, now hinders retrospective investigation. Authorities admit they simply can't reconstruct his movements with confidence. Perhaps most damning is the lack of direct interrogation. Despite being a known predator with proximity and opportunity, Ney has never been formally questioned by Portuguese authorities about the McCann case. In 2018, the McCann family's legal team filed an official request for mutual legal assistance, seeking a transnational interview. The request went unanswered. This investigative void remains one of the most criticized failures in the case's international coordination. So the silence endures. A predator with access, a pattern, and a possible presence at the scene remains uncharged, unexamined, and uneliminated. And in a mystery plagued by false leads and missed chances, that absence says more than any words could. From May 23 to May 25, 2023, A desolate peninsula near the Arade Dam in southern Portugal became the epicenter of one of the most anticipated, high-profile excavations in recent criminal history. A place surrounded by water, dense brush, and steep silence 50 kilometers from Praia da Luz, where exactly 16 years earlier, a 3-year-old girl named Madeleine McCann vanished without a trace. This time, the search was not driven by witness accounts, anonymous tips, or new sightings. It was fueled by something colder, something that pointed, without fully revealing, toward a man whose presence has long loomed in the shadows of the case. German national Christian Bruckner. The operation was requested by German federal investigators, BKA, carried out in direct collaboration with Portuguese police, and closely monitored by officers from the British Metropolitan Police. For 3 days, the banks of the dam transformed into a tightly controlled excavation site, sealed off by a no-fly zone to ensure drones could operate undisturbed. Media and the public were kept far back, their cameras unable to capture what truly mattered, whether the truth had finally surfaced. This was not a symbolic effort. It was technical, expensive, and grimly specific. Specialized teams deployed ground-penetrating radar to scan below the soil. Drones hovered across uneven terrain, capturing high-resolution imagery of areas deemed promising by satellite coordinates. Professional divers scoured the lakebed in slow, methodical sweeps. Search dogs trained in scent detection were brought in alongside shovels, metal detectors, and soil sampling kits. Every inch of this area had been chosen for a reason. And that reason was Christian Bruckner. Back in 2016, during a raid on a property belonging to Bruckner in Germany, investigators uncovered a GPS device among a trove of digital files buried beneath a dead dog. Within the device's data logs were multiple location pings, repeated visits to the Arade Dam. This, combined with statements Bruckner made referring to the area as "my little paradise," painted a picture that investigators could no longer ignore. Disturbing photographs later emerged showing Bruckner nude at the dam, his body smeared with paint, wearing a homemade mask. Bizarre, unsettling, and directionless as they were, the images added a layer of psychological unease. This man had a history of sadistic behavior, pedophilia, and violence. Could this have been the final resting place of Madeleine? With technology in place and resources committed, the excavation began. Soil was lifted, sifted, analyzed. Divers emerged with samples from the dam's deeper points, and after 3 days, under the eyes of the world, the list of recovered items was sobering. Fragments of fabric, bone remains, all examined, all inconclusive. The bones were determined to be non-human. The cloth, unmatched to Madeleine's known clothing, held no DNA or forensic significance. There was no hair, no teeth, no trace. For the 15th year in a row, the void where answers should be remained unbroken. Yet even silence can be damning. Hans Christian Wolters, the German prosecutor who had long pursued Bruckner as a primary suspect, issued a statement not with triumph, but with resignation. "We are near the end," he said. Not because they had solved the case, but because they were running out of options. By January 2024, Wolters confirmed publicly what investigators feared privately: no forensic evidence had yet emerged to directly link Christian Bruckner to the crime. The GPS data, the old photographs, the disturbing chat logs, none of it amounted to legal proof. It was, in Wolters' words, strong suspicion, but not legal certainty. And now, the clock is ticking. Bruckner is currently serving a 7-year sentence in Germany for the brutal rape of a 72-year-old woman in Praia da Luz in 2005, just 2 years before Madeleine disappeared. That sentence is scheduled to end in September 2025. Unless prosecutors can file new charges, ones that will stick, he could walk free. Worse still, under German law, if Bruckner were put on trial for Madeleine's case without sufficient evidence and acquitted, he could never be tried again for the same crime. There is no second chance. This legal dilemma has cast a long, grim shadow over the final years of investigation. Forensic evidence deteriorates, witnesses disappear, memories fade, and a girl whose image once stared out from every billboard, airport, and television screen is now, legally, a ghost. Still missing, still unaccounted for. The implications are unsettling. Bruckner has long denied involvement. In handwritten letters from prison, he has accused German authorities of launching a witch hunt, claiming they are more interested in headlines than truth. His defense team echoes this view, arguing that no court in the world could convict a man on suspicion alone. But suspicion is heavy, and the Arade Dam search proved that police still believe Madeleine is no longer alive, that her remains, if found, would answer questions that have haunted 3 nations for almost 2 decades. So the question remains, was this the last chance? Has the truth been buried too deep, waited too long, or is it still out there, waiting for the right spade, the right witness, the right moment? Because if Madeleine McCann is still out there, then every delay, every procedural failure, and every missed clue becomes more than a mistake. It becomes a quiet, compounding injustice. And if she is not, if she was taken, buried, and erased by someone who may soon walk free, then the silence at Arade Dam is no longer just empty. It is damning, and it is final. More than 16 years have passed since the night Madeleine McCann vanished from a holiday apartment in Portugal. And yet her case remains one of the most extensively investigated and emotionally charged missing child cases in modern history. At the center of Britain's effort to solve the mystery is Operation Grange, a special unit launched by the Metropolitan Police in 2011. Since its inception, the investigation has cost the British government nearly £13.5 million, making it one of the most expensive missing persons inquiries ever undertaken in the UK. But as the years have stretched on, the scale of Operation Grange has shrunk dramatically. In the most recent funding cycle, 2023 to 2024, only £108,000 was allocated to the investigation. That's a fraction of what was once spent annually. The drop in funding reflects a broader reality. Nearly every major lead has been exhausted, and no forensic breakthrough has emerged. What was once a full-scale international hunt has become a narrowed operation working with minimal resources. This slow fade has not gone unnoticed. Across the UK and abroad, public fatigue has become a growing sentiment. After more than a decade of media headlines, televised interviews, speculative documentaries, and no arrests, many people have begun to express frustration. Skepticism about the investigation's effectiveness has been voiced in comment sections, talk shows, and editorial pages. Some critics question whether the millions spent have truly advanced the case, or whether it's time to accept that the trail has gone cold. And yet, standing in stark contrast to the public's wariness is the enduring resolve of Madeleine's parents, Jerry and Kate McCann. Despite enduring relentless media scrutiny, public suspicion, and personal heartbreak, they have never stopped searching. Over the years, they've appeared on talk shows, launched campaigns, published appeals, and maintained the website Find Madeleine.com as both a tribute and a call for information. Their message remains unwavering. There is no closure, no information, no definitive answers. But we still have hope. Whatever happens, we'll never give up looking for Madeleine. The context today is more urgent than ever. In May 2023, authorities conducted a major excavation at Arade Dam, a remote reservoir in Portugal located 50 kilometers from the Ocean Club Resort where Madeleine disappeared. The search was prompted by links to Christian Bruckner, a convicted sex offender who had previously lived in the area and referred to the dam as "my little paradise." Despite drones, sonar, professional divers, and days of investigation, only scraps of fabric and animal bones were found, no conclusive evidence. Following the operation, German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters said, "We are near the end," suggesting that unless new evidence surfaces, the investigation may soon wind down. In January 2024, Wolters confirmed again that no charges against Bruckner were imminent due to a lack of forensic proof tying him to Madeleine. The implications are sobering. Bruckner is currently serving a 7-year sentence in Germany for an unrelated rape conviction. But unless new charges are brought, he will walk free by September 2025. Under German law, if prosecutors attempt to charge him now and fail, he cannot be tried again for the same crime, even if stronger evidence emerges later. It's a high-stakes gamble. Meanwhile, Operation Grange continues, if only on life support. With its sharply reduced budget and little public confidence, many fear the investigation is nearing its final chapter. And yet, for the McCanns, the mission has never been about closure or cost. It has always been about their daughter. About refusing to let her be forgotten. About defying time, fatigue, and failure. There is no resolution, no confession, no grave to mourn, but there is still hope. Madeleine McCann was born on May 12, 2003. Had she been found, she would be 21 years old today, a young woman stepping into adulthood, likely filled with dreams, ambitions, and the quiet confidence of someone beginning to shape her future. But the world will never meet that version of her. Instead, we are left with the image of a bright-eyed 3-year-old girl in a pink dress, forever paused in time, forever missing. Her case remains one of the most haunting disappearances in modern investigative history. How does a child vanish without a trace in a world saturated with surveillance? Despite international attention, Madeleine left behind no confirmed sightings, no verifiable camera footage, and no forensic evidence conclusive enough to charge a suspect. The paradox is jarring technology has never been more advanced, yet in this case, it yielded no justice. One of the most remarkable facts about Madeleine's profile is her rare medical condition, a coloboma in her right eye, a dark line cutting down through her pupil. This anomaly was at the heart of global awareness campaigns. It should have made her instantly recognizable. And yet, across thousands of alleged sightings in over 40 countries, not one child with that eye condition was ever positively identified as Madeleine. Some experts have speculated, if she were still alive, had her captor deliberately concealed this feature through colored lenses, or even surgical correction. The search for Madeleine evolved into one of the most expensive missing person investigations in history. Operation Grange, launched by Scotland Yard in 2011, surpassed £13 million by 2023. Critics have questioned why such immense resources were allocated when countless other cases remain underfunded. But for many, Madeleine had become a symbol of innocence lost, and of the uncomfortable truth that privilege can both amplify attention and complicate accountability. Despite the lack of a body, a murder weapon, or definitive DNA, the suspect list was never empty. Christian Bruckner, a convicted sex offender, and Martin Ney, a serial child killer, both emerged as strong persons of interest. Yet the absence of conclusive evidence against either man has left the case in a legal gray zone where suspicion lingers, but prosecution remains elusive. For the public, this fosters a deeper sense of disillusionment. If such high-profile suspects can elude justice, what hope remains for the invisible victims? Beyond individual responsibility, the case highlights systemic failure. Madeleine vanished from a resort widely considered safe, surrounded by English-speaking tourists, in a European country with modern infrastructure. Her disappearance reshaped how families perceive travel risk, especially in transient international zones where legal responsibility blurs across borders. Praia da Luz became the first domino in a wave of increased caution at family resorts across southern Europe. The case also catalyzed a shift in public opinion. Early sympathy for the McCanns slowly eroded as media coverage spotlighted inconsistencies, unanswered questions, and parenting decisions. Some accused them of neglect. Others viewed them as scapegoats. The result: a deeply polarized global audience, often more focused on judgment than justice. What was lost in the noise was the core truth: a child is still missing. And every debate that strays from that center risks undermining the purpose of the search. The aftermath also exposed critical gaps in international child protection. At the time of Madeleine's disappearance, no cross-border emergency alert was activated. The 24-hour window most vital in abduction cases passed without border surveillance, coordinated media bulletins, or passenger screenings. In hindsight, this inaction was seen as a failure and led several EU countries to revise how AMBR-style alerts are deployed. Today, Madeleine's case is more than a mystery. It is a monument to the fragility of hope in the face of bureaucratic inertia. Her smile remains frozen, and so too does the case. Documents archived, officers reassigned, clues grown stale. The world remembers her, but justice, it seems, does not. And that is perhaps the final tragedy, that time has moved forward. But the truth remains still,